Hello, good morning. Uh, a lot less wind today. Yesterday it was very windy. Today it's a lot better. So, a few years ago, I was talking to a friend, and he asked me why I decided to switch my diet to a purely plant-based to a purely plant-based diet. He wanted to know the reason that I'd gone vegan. And I told him at that stage, I told him that my main reason was health, but it was also for animal welfare reasons. And he said that he couldn't understand at all my point of view because, after all, in nature, animals eat other animals, that it's a completely natural thing for carnivores and other big animals to eat each other. So why shouldn't we? Uh, I remember wondering, I'd not heard this argument before. And that evening I was thinking about, I remembered back to when I was a child, and I remember watching Robinson Crusoe on television, and he was cast away on a desert island. And I remember as a child letting this scenario go through my mind. And even as a child, I remember thinking that, you know, on a desert island, we wouldn't be very well equipped to catch a rabbit, a wild pig, a bird, uh, a wild anything. Thinking about it, I couldn't think of a way that I would be able to catch and eat an animal. So even as a child, I wondered whether we were really equipped to eat animals, physically speaking, of course. And if you think about it, our physical body is just not equipped for catching an animal. I mean, we're slow compared to most animals, uh, and we don't have claws. We don't have the teeth to rip apart the meat. Um, you know, our hands are perfect for peeling an orange. Have you noticed that? You can stick your thumb in the top of an orange and peel it really well using the hands, but pretty useless really at ripping an animal apart. And the more I thought about what my friend had said, I started to think about, I mean, nobody, I mean, we humans, we just don't feel hungry at the sight of an animal. You know, when we see an animal, a wild animal, I don't think we see it as food. And if we are really true carnivores, in my example of the cow in the field, why don't we, when we see the cow in the field, the cattle in the field, this juicy cattle, we don't stop the car. We don't open the doors, jump over the fence, try and chase the cattle down to eat it for lunch. This is just not something that ever happens. And I think there's a reason for that, and that is that we are not actually carnivores. A lot of people say, well, of course we're not carnivores, we're omnivores. But if you look at the teeth and the physical makeup of a pure omnivore, we're not like that either. Actually, we're a lot more like herbivores or frugivores. And if you think about it, we also, there's, I mean, there has to be a reason that we shelter the truth from our children. I mean, if we were true omnivores, if we had no problem at all with eating animals and it was part of our nature, why would we try to shelter the truth from our children? I mean, most parents don't willingly or deliberately talk to their children about what goes on in a slaughterhouse. And a lot of parents hope their children never really ask where meat comes from in a deeper way. So there's a reason for that. Whereas as a parent, you'd have no problem at all explaining where an apple comes from or an orange. But if we were true omnivores, if we were really made by nature to eat meat, surely we wouldn't have a problem explaining this to our children. It's something to think about, I think. In comparison, when you see a ripe apple or a ripe tomato here in Tenerife, sometimes you find little little tomatoes that are just growing naturally on the ground. The conditions are right, and they are absolutely delicious. But when you see one, or a bilberry or a blackberry, or you have the urge to pick it and eat it. This is I think this is an urge that we all share. So when we see ripe fruit, we are attracted to it. We're attracted to picking it and eating it. Whereas when we see a wild animal, we don't feel hungry at all. So what does this say about who we really are? This was what I started to ask myself, you know. I also found out yesterday that fruit is the easiest of all foods for humans to eat. Nothing is more perfect for us. It goes straight through our digestive system, everything perfect. Whereas meat is one of the hardest things for us to digest. And actually, we have a very long intestines compared to the intestines of a true meat-eating animal or an omnivore. They have shorter intestines to get rid of the meat quickly, and also the acid in the stomach of a carnivore is really strong, whereas ours, the acid that we have in our stomachs is really quite weak. And that's actually a reason why I found out a reason why we often get food poisoning from food, meat, if it's not being cooked properly, because we don't have the acid in our stomach to kill the bacteria, whereas a lion has no problem with that whatsoever. So, but even if, let's say for argument, we are omnivores and that we are by nature meant to eat meat, we don't, now in this modern world, we don't need to eat meat, and we are, I think, far more compassionate than we are omnivore. So the argument that other animals eat each other, so why shouldn't we? I mean, what kind of logic is that? To base our morality on the actions of wild animals? I mean, we wouldn't normally do that, you know. I mean, we don't normally base our morality on the actions of a wild animal, so why should we do that now? The most natural thing for me is absolutely fruit and berries, you know. And I think this is our nature. I think that our nature is actually not to eat meat. I think it's to eat fruit and berries and nuts and roots and so on. And the only reason that we do eat meat is because we like the taste of it. So I think this is really true. Most people would say I could never go vegan because I like the taste too much. So if we're only eating meat for the taste of it, this means that we are ignoring completely our sense of compassion that we all have. We're very strongly compassionate people. This is why we can't watch the images from a slaughterhouse or images of animals being treated cruelly, because we are compassionate. So the honest truth is, people eat meat because they like the taste, and they ignore the compassionate side of their selves. And this is why all the meat is packaged and presented in a way so we're not reminded of the suffering that goes on. So coming back to my friend saying other animals eat each other, so why shouldn't we? It's a poor argument. Other animals rape and kill each other. You wouldn't say, well, other animals rape and kill each other, so it's fine that I do that. It's obviously a nonsensical argument, and it's certainly nothing that we would want to base our morality on. So as an argument, I think I think we've been through the points now, and I think that it's clear that we are actually herbivores, or probably even frugivores, and we need to find our way back to our true selves. Thank you. See you tomorrow.